When you pick up a box of food today, say like a stand or a box of cereal, you instinctively flip it over to look at the nutrition label.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we're all looking for the math.
Right. You scan the grams of protein, the carbs, the fats, the calories, and you just kind of accept that as the absolute truth of what that food is.
Yeah, because we find a lot of comfort in that quantification.
Right.
The whole modern dietary framework, it basically reduces everything we consume to just, well, fuel and building blocks.
Exactly.
They're neatly categorized and completely separated from the actual environment the food grew in.
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you step into the world of ancient Ayurvedic medicine, that modern nutrition label suddenly looks, well, entirely inadequate.
It really does. It misses the whole picture.
Yeah. We are looking at a dietary landscape today that does not care about your calorie count. It cares about the exact real-time physiological and energetic impact of every single bite you take.
Which is the absolute definition of viewing food as targeted medicine. I mean, that's why the source material for today's deep dive is just so compelling.
It really is. So for you listening, we are exploring excerpts from the Anasvarupa Vijnaniya Attaya, which translates to the knowledge of food substances.
Right, from the work of Akarya Vagbhata.
Yes, it's this highly detailed ancient Ayurvedic treatise. And our mission for this deep dive is to really explore this centuries-old master matrix of nutrition, because it doesn't just list what people ate back then, it categorizes exactly how these substances act as highly specific medical interventions in the human body.
Yeah, and before we get into the actual specifics of what they were eating, it really helps to understand the lens they were looking through.
Oh, for sure. Set the stage for us.
So in this system, your body is governed by three fundamental energies, or doshas. You have Vata, which is wind and movement. You have Pitta, which is fire and metabolism.
Right.
And Kapha, which is essentially earth, water, and physical structure. So every single food is analyzed by how it manipulates those three forces.
Does it increase heat or does it create heavy, watery structure?
Exactly. Or does it stimulate erratic movement? It's all about how the food acts mechanically.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start at the very foundation of how they built physical mass in the body, which is the grains.
The grains, yes. The anchor of the diet.
Yeah, and when you look at how the text treats cereals and pulses, they don't just group them together as, carbohydrates. They rank them in this fierce hierarchy based on their energetic properties.
They really do. And at the very peak of that hierarchy, the absolute king is Raktasali, or red rice.
Red rice.
Well, yeah, the text states it relieves thirst and it completely subsides all three doshas. It's perfectly balanced.
So it doesn't push the body too far into heat or anything.
Exactly. Nor does it make the body too heavy or too stimulated. It is the ultimate stabilizing force.
That makes sense.
But then, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have a grain called yavaka. And that is explicitly declared the absolute worst variety of rice.
The absolute way.
Yeah, likely because its heavy, dense qualities just completely disrupt that delicate balance we were talking about.
And the text gets incredibly specific about growth cycles, too. I mean, there's a type of paddy mentioned called sastika.
Oh, right, sastika.
Yeah, and its defining feature is that it yields a crop in just 60 days. And because of that rapid maturity, it's considered the best among its specific group.
Right, and the mechanism there is fascinating. It's a direct transfer of environmental urgency.
Wait, really? Explain that.
Well, they believed a plant that bursts into life and matures in just 60 days imparts that exact same light, highly active, rapid growth energy to the human body.
Oh, wow. So you eat the fast plant, you get the fast energy.
Precisely. It is cold, light, and really useful for mitigating sluggishness. But if you really want to understand how they viewed food as a mechanical intervention, you have to look at Java, or barley.
Yes, the barley section was wild. The use case for barley reads like a highly specific medical prescription.
It really does.
The text notes that it increases feces and flatus. Basically, it makes you go to the bathroom and gives you gas.
Right, which sounds terrible to us.
Exactly. But simultaneously, it acts as an aphrodisiac, it decreases excessive body fat, and it's used to manage asthma and skin diseases, all at once.
I know. In the modern world, we'd view gas and increased waste elimination as a negative side effect, right? Maybe a sign of gluten intolerance or something.
Yeah, you'd stop eating it immediately.
But in the Ayurvedic framework, that is a mechanical clearing of the body's channels. Barley is described as having heavy and rough qualities.
Rough qualities?
Yeah, so if you have excess kapha, meaning you have dense, stagnant fat or mucus, You need a rough substance to literally scrape those excess tissues away.
Oh, wow.
So that scraping action is exactly why it manages body fat and clears the respiratory channels in asthma.
That is so logical when you frame it that way. And then you have Godhuma, or wheat.
Oh, the wheat part is incredible.
It is. The text explicitly states that wheat has the property of being useful to join fractured bones, which is just crazy to think about today. If you break your arm now, you get a fiberglass cast, right? And maybe the doctors kick a calcium supplement.
Right, exactly.
But this ancient text looks at a bowl of wheat and essentially treats it like a structural repair kit for your skeleton.
Yeah, and to understand that, you have to look at how a broken bone is actually categorized in this system. A fracture represents an excess of dry, brittle, chaotic energy.
Okay.
It's a massive Vata aggravation, and you do not fix dry and brittle tissue with light, airy foods.
No, you'd need something heavy, right?
Exactly. Wheat is described as sweet, heavy, unctuous scour, which means oily or lubricating, and it gives profound strength. It provides the grounding, heavy, energetic spackle, basically, required to rebuild solid mass.
Energetic spackle, I love that. And that same logic, matching the food's energy to the body's condition, it applies to the pulses too, the beans.
Yes, absolutely.
Like munga, the mung bean, is crowned the best for its balancing nature. But the text issues a really severe warning about kalatha, or horse gram.
Very.
Yeah, it says if you rely too heavily on it, it will lead to bleeding disorders, which they call Pitta.
Right, and the term Pitta basically means blood that has been overheated by Pitta, the fire dosha.
Okay, so the horse gram is literally too hot.
Exactly. It's hot in potency, and remarkably, it becomes sour at the end of digestion. And in this system, excessive sour heat vitiates the blood.
And just to clarify for you listening, when we say vitiate, we mean it aggressively corrupts or overstimulates the system.
Precisely. Yeah, it throws way too much fire into the physiological furnace.
Wow.
So the heat expands the blood, causing it to literally break out of its boundaries, and that results in bleeding disorders. A bean isn't just a unit of protein to them.
No, not at all.
It is a thermal event in your digestive tract.
A thermal event, which means a grain or a bean isn't a static object. Its properties aren't just fixed forever. The text moves from the raw ingredients into the alchemy of the kitchen, the Kartana Varga.
Yes, the preparation.
Right, and it explains that time and heat completely alter the fundamental physics of the food.
Time is such a crucial ingredient here. The text specifies that recently harvested, fresh grains actually increase kapha, meaning they increase heaviness and mucus.
Because they're still holding water.
Exactly. But grains that have been aged for 1 year are considered lighter and way easier to digest.
Because over the course of a year, they've slowly lost that water weight. They have literally dried out.
Right. The moisture content directly dictates the metabolic burden placed on your digestion. And the physical preparation methods, like how you cook it, take this manipulation of energy even further.
Oh yeah, look at the rules surrounding urdana, the preparation of rice.
Right.
If you fry rice with other grains, the text says it becomes light and easy to digest. But if you take that exact same rice and you process it with milk or cook it alongside mutton, it suddenly becomes heavy and incredibly difficult for the body to process.
And what's fascinating here is that this is an incredibly sophisticated early understanding of food chemistry and metabolic load. Long before we knew anything about molecular structures, they recognized that animal fats and complex proteins bind to carbohydrates.
Which slows everything down.
Exactly. It drastically extends the time and energy your stomach requires to break them down. But they didn't just point out the problem. They actually provided the chemical antidote.
Right. The text notes that if you add a hot potency substance to that heavy mutton-processed rice, specifically santhi or dried ginger, it immediately becomes easily digestible again.
The ginger basically acts like a metabolic spark plug.
A spark plug, yeah.
It provides the external fire you need to burn through that heavy, dense combination of meat and dairy. It artificially elevates your digestive capacity to meet the demands of the meal.
That is so smart. And they applied the same logic to the liquids used in cooking, too.
Oh, the liquids, yeah.
I found the notes on Menda, which is gruel water, basically the liquid left over from boiling rice, to be deeply insightful.
It's surprisingly profound.
Yeah, the text praises this simple rice water as the absolute best among liquid preparations because it relieves exhaustion, softens the body's tissue pores, and causes the downward movement of Vata.
And that concept, that downward movement, is so central to Ayurvedic health.
Explain that a bit more.
Sure. So Vata governs all movement in the nervous and digestive systems. When Vata moves upward erratically, that's when you experience burping, hiccups, or like respiratory distress.
Okay, that makes sense.
And when it stagnates, you get severe bloating and even systemic anxiety. So, encouraging the downward movement of Vata ensures proper digestion, efficient elimination, and a much more grounded, calm nervous system.
So basically, a bowl of leftover rice water is effectively acting as a traffic director for the nervous system,
Yeah, exactly.
just forcing that chaotic energy back down to the ground.
It's an incredibly elegant way to stabilize the body.
It really is. And if altering plant matter through cooking can have that profound of an effect, the text takes it to an entirely different level when discussing the consumption of animal tissue.
Oh, the Mamsa Varga, the meat group.
Yeah. It treats consuming flesh as like consuming the behavioral and environmental history of the animal.
They absolutely do not categorize meat purely by species.
Oh.
Like, they don't just have a section for cow and a section for chicken.
No.
They categorize the animal primarily by its habitat and its daily physical behavior.
Which is wild to think about.
Yeah, it's the idea that you are what you eat, but you are also where your food lived and how it moved.
Exactly. And the primary division is between Jingala and Anupa.
Right.
So Jingala animals live in dry lands and forests like deer. Their meat is classified as light and cold, and the text notes it causes constipation.
Very drying.
Right. On the flip side, Anupa animals live in marshy, wet lands like buffalo, pigs, and fish. And their meat is heavy, and fish in particular is said to excessively increase kapha.
You know, it sounds a bit like sympathetic magic, right? Like, eat a water creature, become more watery.
Yeah, it sounds almost mystical.
But it is actually rooted in biology. An animal foraging in an arid forest develops a completely different fat ratio and muscle density than an animal wallowing in a stagnant marsh.
Oh, that makes total sense.
So when you digest that tissue, you literally inherit the physical qualities required to survive in that specific environment.
But the behavioral classifications, that's where the observation gets just shockingly granular.
The birds.
Yes, the birds. The text separates birds into two groups. You have Viscera and Protuta.
Right.
Viscera are birds that furiously scratch the soil with their legs to get their food, like quail or peacocks.
Okay.
And Protuta are birds that peck or strike at their food with their beaks, like sparrows or parrots.
And this raises such an important question for us today. Why would human digestion be impacted by how a bird secured its dinner?
Exactly. Why does it matter if it's scratched or pecked?
The underlying mechanism here is the development of lean muscle fiber.
Oh, of course.
A bird that spends its entire life engaging its leg muscles to tear at hard earth, it builds a dense, highly active type of tissue. But a bird that just casually pecks at hanging fruit develops entirely different muscle tension. And that physical exertion translates directly into the metabolic effort required by human stomach acid to break those proteins apart.
So the energy expenditure of the animal literally transfers to the consumer,
Exactly.
which explains the staggeringly specific medical applications they prescribed for meat.
Oh, they get so specific.
They really do. Like rabbit meat is utilized as an internal water absorbent.
Right.
Cow meat is used to manage dry cough, extreme fatigue, and intermittent fevers. And goat meat is highlighted because it is considered so structurally similar to human tissue that it nourishes the body without aggravating any of the doshas.
And the logic of the goat meat is purely about energetic conversion.
How so?
Well, to build human muscle, your body has to take in foreign protein, break it all the way down, and then completely reassemble it.
Which is hard work.
Right? It costs a massive amount of metabolic energy. So the ancient scholars determined that goat tissue required the least amount of energetic conversion to become human tissue.
Yeah.
It's essentially the universal donor of the dietary world.
Universal donor. Wow. But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because while I follow the logic of muscle density and habitat, there is a bizarrely specific anatomical rule in this text that seems almost impossible to verify.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
It states that the meat from the upper part of the body of male animals and the lower part of the body of female animals is not easily digestible.
Yep.
I mean, how could ancient scholars possibly test and verify a hyperspecific, gender-based anatomy rule for digestion?
It certainly challenges our modern demand for double-blind clinical trials, doesn't it?
It really does.
But if we reverse engineer their logic, it stems from that same deep observation of biomechanical strain that we saw with the birds.
Okay.
In a lot of mammalian species, males carry massive structural weight and muscle tension in their shoulders and necks
Right.
for combat, right? and dominance displays.
Oh, like antlers or just fighting for territory.
Exactly. Whereas females dedicate immense physiological resources and structural support to their lower halves for carrying and delivering offspring.
Oh my gosh. So they deduce that the areas of highest biological tension and physical strain over the course of the animal's life yield the heaviest, hardest to digest meat.
Precisely. The tissue basically holds the memory of the strain.
The tissue holds the memory. That is incredible.
It is an extreme application of their core philosophy for sure,
Mm.
but while meat and grains are the heavy lifters that build physical mass, the true rapid-fire medicinal power and the danger really lies in the final categories.
Right, the vegetables, the fruits, and the salts. The Saka, Phala, and Usada groups.
Yes, these are the targeted interventions.
And they are powerful. Take garlic or lasuna. The text treats garlic almost like a mythical substance.
It really is revered.
It's described as a cardiac tonic, a hair growth stimulant, an aphrodisiac, and just like we saw with wheat, it is prescribed to join fractured bones.
Right, but it comes with a massive warning.
Yes, it does.
It severely vitiates blood and pitta, so it introduces intense aggressive heat into the system.
It's like turning the furnace in your house up to maximum just to dry out a damp wall.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, it will absolutely dry the wall, but you risk catching the living room curtains on fire.
That is a perfect analogy for how they viewed potent herbs. In modern terms, we know garlic acts as a really powerful vasodilator.
Right.
But in Ayurvedic terms, its aggressive penetrative heat dilates the channels and forcefully pushes nutrients out to the extremities, which totally explains the hair growth stimulation and rushing repair materials to a broken bone.
Sure.
But if your body already runs hot, or if you're prone to inflammation, that intense heat will just push your system over the edge into toxicity.
Which makes the discussion on fruits so vital, because they often act as the cooling countermeasure to that kind of heat, like grapes or draxa. They are definitively crowned as the absolute best among all fruits in the text.
The absolute best.
They're prescribed to cure thirst, calm a cough, and most notably, they are used to treat alcoholic toxicity.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the genius of this system's causality.
Tell me more about that.
Well, alcohol is essentially liquid fire in Ayurveda.
Liquid fire.
Right. It burns through the tissues, creating intense pitta aggravation, systemic heat, and severe dehydration. So a grape isn't just a sweet snack.
Yeah.
It is heavy, cold, and highly unctuous. It is the exact energetic opposite of alcohol.
So it's basically a medical extinguisher.
Yes, it acts as a targeted extinguisher, rehydrating the fried tissues and literally sinking the metabolic heat.
That deep understanding of flavor and thermal energy, it also perfectly explains the nuance of pomegranate.
Oh, the pomegranates are fascinating.
They are. The text differentiates them strictly by flavor, so the sweet variety of pomegranate helps calm pitta disorders by cooling the body, but the sour variety is highlighted as a massive anomaly. It is unique in nature because it's sour, but it doesn't vitiate pitta.
And to understand why that's such an anomaly, we have to look at how sourness normally functions.
Which is usually acidic, right?
Exactly. Normally, sour flavors are highly acidic. They stimulate saliva, they stimulate stomach acid, and they inherently increase the body's internal fire.
So they are pitta aggravating by nature.
By nature, yes. So to find a sour fruit that delivers the digestive stimulation of acidity, but somehow stabilizes the digestive fire without adding, like, a thermal payload.
It's a medical marvel.
It really is. It stokes the digestion without burning the house down.
Wow. And we see that same search for the perfect consequence-free substance in the salts, too.
Yes, the Sindhava.
Right, Sanava or rock salt. It's declared the ultimate salt. The text explains that unlike other mineral salts that cause a burning sensation and increase internal heat, rock salt is delightful, it's inherently cooling, and it somehow balances all three doshas simultaneously.
It is the rare substance that just performs its function without punishing the body for consuming it.
Exactly.
But, as much as Vagbhata praises these perfect substances, the text is equally ruthless about what you must absolutely avoid.
Oh, yeah. The warnings regarding spoiled foods are incredibly severe.
Very severe.
The text strictly warns against eating foods spoiled by frost, foods grown in unseasonal conditions, or foods spoiled by, quote, the saliva of snakes and other reptiles.
Right.
Which, aside from the obvious advice of avoiding venom, the underlying philosophy seems to be about the life force of the food itself.
Yes, and in Ayurveda, that life force is called prana, food grown out of season, or plants that have been damaged by a sudden frost,
Mm.
they possess a confused, chaotic, or just depleted energy.
So the plant has basically suffered trauma.
Exactly. When you consume that plant, you aren't just eating the physical carbohydrates or proteins. You
Yeah.
are actively ingesting the environmental trauma that the plant endured.
That is heavy. So what does this all mean? We've journeyed through this ancient master matrix, from the rapid growth energy of a 60-day rice to the heavy, dense history of marshland buffalo, down to the exact cooling properties of a single grape fighting off the heat of alcohol.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but for you, the listener, the true takeaway here is to attempt to view your own pantry through this energetic lens.
Because it fundamentally changes your relationship with a meal.
Totally. It is so easy to get caught up in tracking macros or ensuring you hit a specific calorie target, but just imagine stepping back and observing the actual energy of what you are putting into your body.
Recognizing the heavy, sluggish nature of a highly processed meal.
Right. Or observing how the light, hot, penetrative energy of a piece of ginger fundamentally changes how your stomach feels an hour later.
It's powerful.
It's about realizing that whether it's a scratch foraging bird or a handful of wheat, what you eat is constantly actively altering your physical state in real time.
And, that leads to a rather profound final thought for you to mull over.
Oh, let's hear it.
We discussed those strict warnings about spoiled food and how the text explicitly tells readers to reject grains that have germinated in unsuitable land or substances that have been artificially mixed and lost their natural properties.
Right, the corrupted prana we talked about.
Exactly. Now, imagine if a Vagbhata or any ancient Ayurvedic master were to walk into a modern grocery store today.
Oh, man.
If they were to observe our center aisles filled with ultra-processed, chemically preserved, artificially flavored, genetically modified foods that just sit in boxes for years.
They wouldn't even know where to begin.
No, they wouldn't attempt to classify them into the 7 groups. They wouldn't analyze their dushic impact or their subtle thermal energies.
You wouldn't even see them as food.
Exactly. They would likely view our entire modern shelf-stable diet as a vast, inescapable collection of rejected substances.
Wow.
They'd see a food system completely devoid of the natural life force, the environmental logic, and the targeted medicinal qualities they spent centuries meticulously cataloging.
That is a staggering thought. So the next time you pick up that box of cereal and flip it over to look at the math equation on the back, maybe ask yourself, what is the actual environmental history of what I'm about to consume? Are you eating targeted medicine, or are you just eating a rejected substance?